The content in this podcast is fully AI generated based on real news articles. Listener discretion is advised. For more detailed information and the original context, please refer to the links provided in the show notes, which direct you to the news articles this podcast is based on. Enjoy the show.
Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of AI Tech News. I'm your host, John, and today we're joined by our amazing co-hosts, Joanne and Jessica. Jessica, I hear you've got quite the background in technology and AI, right?
That's right, John. I've been knee-deep in the world of AI for quite some time now, always excited to dive into the latest developments.
And I'm here to keep you both in check and add a dash of humor to our tech talk. Someone's got to make sure we don't get too nerdy, right?
Ha! Good luck with that, Joanne. All right, let's jump into our first story. It's about OpenAI, and it's not exactly a glowing review from a former employee.
Oh, what's the scoop, John?
Well, according to an article from Futurism, a former OpenAI researcher named William Saunders quit the company after realizing what he calls the upsetting truth. Apparently, he felt that OpenAI was putting safety on the back burner in pursuit of profit.
Wow, that's quite an accusation. Did he elaborate on that at all?
He did, actually. On a tech podcast, he used an interesting analogy. He said, and I quote, "I really didn't want to end up working for the Titanic of AI, and so that's why I resigned."
The Titanic of AI. That's quite a loaded comparison. What exactly did he mean by that?
Well, Saunders explained that he often asked himself whether OpenAI's path was more like the Apollo program or more like the Titanic. He argued that the Titanic was called unsinkable, but didn't have enough lifeboats for everyone when disaster struck.
I see where he's going with this. So he's implying that OpenAI might be sailing into dangerous waters without proper safety measures?
Exactly, Joanne, and it seems he's not alone in these concerns. The article mentions that other former employees have come forward with similar accusations, saying that leadership is turning a blind eye to safety concerns and stifling oversight.
That's right, and there's more. Saunders specifically accused OpenAI of prioritizing getting out newer, shinier products, comparing it to the company that built the Titanic.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what tech companies do? Create new products?
Well, yes, but I think the concern here is about the balance between innovation and safety, especially when we're talking about powerful AI systems. The article mentions concerns about developing AI systems capable of superseding human abilities, what's called artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
Right, and it's worth noting that AGI is still theoretical at this point, but it seems to be a major focus for OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman.
Speaking of Altman, didn't he make some changes to OpenAI's structure recently?
He did indeed. According to the article, Altman dissolved the safety-oriented superalignment team earlier this year and put himself in charge instead. OpenAI said they were creating a new safety and security committee, but it's unclear what that entails.
That's concerning, especially considering that Saunders was part of that superalignment team. It's no wonder he felt the need to leave.
But hang on a second. Didn't OpenAI start with the goal of developing AGI safely? That's what Altman claimed, right?
You're right, Joanne. But critics have pointed out that despite those initial claims, OpenAI seems to have prioritized releasing new chatbots, securing major funding rounds, and partnering with tech giants like Microsoft.
It's a classic case of actions speaking louder than words. Saunders clearly felt that OpenAI's actions weren't aligning with their stated goals.
So what does Saunders think OpenAI should be doing instead?
Well, he hoped OpenAI would operate more like NASA's Apollo space program. He said, even when big problems happened, like Apollo 13, they had enough sort of like redundancy and were able to adapt to the situation in order to bring everyone back safely.
That's an interesting comparison. Both involve pushing the boundaries of what's possible, but with very different approaches to safety and risk management.
But didn't the Apollo program have its own safety issues?
Good point, Joanne. The article mentions that Business Insider brought this up with Saunders. His response was, "It is not possible to develop AGI or any new technology with zero risk. What I would like to see is the company taking all possible reasonable steps to prevent these risks."
That's a nuanced take. He's not calling for zero risk, which would be unrealistic, but for a more robust approach to risk management.
But here's the million-dollar question. Are these risks even real? I mean, we're still pretty far from having an AI that can outsmart humans, right?
You're right to be skeptical, Joanne. The article points out that it's unclear whether these risks will turn out to be justified. We're still far from actual AGI, and some experts argue that the tech might not progress in the way some are predicting.
True, but I think Saunders' comments highlight a broader issue in the AI industry. It's not just about whether we'll achieve AGI, but about how companies are approaching AI development and the potential risks involved.
Absolutely, Jessica. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's clear that as AI continues to advance, these discussions about safety, ethics, and responsible development are going to become increasingly important.
Well, folks, it looks like the world of AI is as dramatic as ever. Who knew coding could be so titanic?
Nice one, Joanne. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. We'll be discussing the biggest risks of using generative AI like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, and Apple Intelligence in your private life. Stick around, it's going to be an eye-opener. Welcome back, listeners. We're diving into our next topic, and it's a doozy. We're talking about the biggest risks of using generative AI like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, and Apple Intelligence in your private life. This comes from a recent CNBC article that's got some eye-opening insights.
Oh boy, are we about to get paranoid about our AI assistants now?
Well, Joanne, it's not about paranoia, but about being informed. The article points out that while many consumers are enamored with these new AI tools, they often ignore the potential privacy ramifications, which can be significant.
That's right, Jessica. And it's not just about one or two tools. We're talking about a whole range of AI assistants that are becoming increasingly integrated into our daily lives.
Ah, like that new Microsoft Surface PC with the Copilot button right on the keyboard? I have to admit, that sounds pretty cool.
It does sound cool, but that's exactly why we need to be aware of the privacy implications. The article mentions that different AI tools have different privacy policies related to the use of user data and its retention, and in many cases, consumers aren't aware of how their data is or could be used.
Exactly. The article quotes Jody Daniels, a privacy consultant, who says there's not a universal opt-out across all tools. This means we need to be informed consumers and understand the privacy policies of each tool we use.
Does anyone actually read those long, boring privacy policies?
Well, Joanne, the article suggests that we should. It recommends asking some key questions before choosing a tool. How is your information used? Is there an option to turn off data sharing? Can data be deleted? These are important considerations.
And here's an interesting point from the article. A tool that cares about privacy is going to tell you, according to Daniels. So if you can't easily find answers to these questions, that should raise a red flag.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about when we're actually using these AI tools? Any tips there?
Good question. The article has some advice on that too. Andrew Frost Moroz, founder of Aloha Browser, recommends not putting any sensitive data into generative AI models. You never really know how it could be used or possibly misused.
Right? And this applies to both personal and work-related information. Many corporations are concerned about employees using AI models to help with their work because of how that information might be used for training purposes.
So no asking ChatGPT to proofread my diary entries. Got it.
Exactly, Joanne. The article suggests being cautious about using AI models for anything non-public or that you wouldn't want to be shared with others in any capacity.
Now let's talk about some specific tools. The article mentions that both Google's Gemini and OpenAI's ChatGPT offer some opt-out options for data usage.
That's right, John. For ChatGPT, users can opt out of having their data used for model training. It's a simple process of navigating to the data controls under Settings and disabling the Improve the Model for Everyone feature.
But isn't it good to help improve the model? Why would we want to opt out?
Well, according to Jacob Hoffman Andrews from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, there's no real upside for consumers to allow Gen AI to train on their data, and there are risks that are still being studied.
And here's an interesting point. While you can usually remove personal data if it's improperly published on the web, untraining AI models is a whole different ballgame. It's an area of active research.
Wow, so once it's in there, it's really in there, huh?
Seems that way. Now let's talk about Microsoft Copilot. The article mentions that Microsoft doesn't share consumer data with third parties without permission and doesn't use customer data to train Copilot without consent.
But users can opt in if they choose. The advantage is that it can make existing features more effective. The drawback, of course, is that consumers lose control of how their data is used.
So it's a trade-off between functionality and privacy? That's a tough choice.
It is, Joanne, but the good news is that if you do opt in with Microsoft, you can withdraw your consent at any time.
Lastly, the article offers some advice for using generative AI for search. It suggests setting a short retention period for the AI tool, if possible, and deleting chats after you've gotten the information you need.
Huh. I never thought about deleting my chats with AI. I guess I've been treating it like a search engine.
And that's exactly the point, Joanne. We need to be more mindful about how we use these AI tools. They're not just search engines. They're much more complex, and our interactions with them can have long-lasting implications for our privacy.
Absolutely, John. It's all about being an informed user and taking control of our data in this new AI-driven world.
Well said, Jessica. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. We'll be discussing some fascinating research from NASA about what would happen if a small asteroid hit Earth. Stick around, folks. Welcome back, listeners. We're moving from AI privacy concerns to something that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. NASA and AI have been working together to figure out what would happen if a small asteroid hit Earth. This comes from a fascinating article on Earth.com.
Oh, great. Now we're worried about asteroids, too? As if we didn't have enough to worry about.
Actually, Joanne, the article points out that a large asteroid colliding with Earth is highly unlikely in the foreseeable future. But given the potential catastrophic damage, NASA is taking a better safe than sorry approach.
That's right, Jessica. The article mentions that every 2 years, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies, or CNEOS for short, leads a hypothetical exercise simulating an asteroid impact scenario.
Wait, so they're basically running a doomsday drill? That's kind of cool, actually.
It is cool, and it's also crucial. These exercises involve both federal and international agencies, addressing the uncertainties tied to an asteroid strike. Paul Chodas, the director of CNEOS, explains that these scenarios are complex and take significant effort to design.
And get this year's simulation was particularly intense. They imagined a hypothetical asteroid with a 72% chance of striking Earth in 14 years.
72%. That's pretty high, right? I mean, for a hypothetical scenario.
It is high, Joanne. The potential impact locations included heavily populated areas across North America, Southern Europe, and North Africa. But there was also a 28% chance it would miss Earth entirely.
And here's where it gets really interesting. In the simulation, once the asteroid got close to the sun, further observation became impossible for 7 months. This left decision makers in a real quandary about what to do next.
7 months of not knowing, that sounds stressful.
It does, doesn't it? But that's exactly why these exercises are so important. Tarek Daly from APL, who coordinated the exercise, emphasized that an asteroid impact would have severe national and international ramifications. That's why they included international planetary defense experts for the first time this year.
The article also mentions some real-world efforts in asteroid defense. For instance, there's the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART mission, which was a monumental success in asteroid deflection.
DART? Like playing darts with asteroids?
Not quite, Joanne. It's more complex than that. The article explains that it involves years of preparation and planning, requiring advanced observatories to detect hazardous asteroids as early as possible.
And speaking of detection, there's a new infrared space telescope called the Near-Earth Object Surveyor, or NEOS, slated for launch in late 2027. It's going to play a significant role in spotting potentially dangerous objects.
Wow, we're really taking this seriously, huh? But has an asteroid ever actually hit Earth?
Actually, yes. The article mentions two notable events. The Tunguska event of 1908, where a small asteroid exploded above Siberia, flattening about 80 million trees over an 800-square-mile area.
And more recently, there was the Chelyabinsk meteor in 2013 that shook Russia, causing extensive injuries and property damage due to the resulting shockwave.
Okay, now I'm starting to see why we need these exercises, but what can we actually do if we spot an asteroid heading our way?
Well, that's where missions like DART come in. They're integral to developing techniques to alter an asteroid's course. And the NEOS telescope I mentioned earlier, that's aimed at spotting potentially dangerous objects long before they become a threat.
Exactly. It's all about being proactive. But NASA also has reactive strategies in place, like these emergency response exercises, to ensure global coordination and swift decision-making processes.
Huh. You know, I actually do feel a bit safer knowing all this. It's like having a cosmic insurance policy.
That's a great way to put it, Joanne. As the article says, forewarned is forearmed. Every step we take today could be crucial for protecting our planet tomorrow.
Absolutely. And on that note of cosmic insurance, let's move on to our next topic, which brings us back down to Earth. Quite literally, we'll be discussing how doctors are using AI in their constant battle with insurers. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, listeners. We're shifting gears now to talk about a fascinating development in the healthcare industry. According to a recent New York Times article, doctors are turning to an unexpected ally in their ongoing battle with insurance companies, AI. Jessica, what can you tell us about this?
Well, John, it's quite an interesting development. The article focuses on Dr. Aslan Tariq, a rehabilitation medicine practitioner in Illinois. He, like many doctors, has been spending a significant amount of time, about 7 hours a week, fighting with insurance companies over treatment approvals for his patients.
7 hours a week? That's almost a full workday, just arguing with insurance companies.
Exactly, Joanne. And according to Dr. Tariq, it's been getting worse over his 12-year career. The list of treatments needing pre-approval from insurers keeps growing, and the denials seem to be increasing.
The article gives some pretty stark examples. There was a 45-year-old man who spent 5 months in a wheelchair while his insurer repeatedly denied appeals for a prosthetic leg.
5 months, that's horrible. How can they deny someone a prosthetic leg?
It does seem shocking. And there was another case of a stroke survivor who ended up back in the hospital after a fall because the insurer decided his rehab could be done at home.
These stories really highlight the frustration doctors face, and that's where AI comes in. Dr. Tariq has turned to generative AI chatbots to help him fight these battles.
Wait, how does a chatbot help fight insurance companies? Is it trash-talking them or something?
Not quite, Joanne. These AI chatbots can draft letters to insurers in seconds, accomplishing in minutes what used to take hours of a doctor's time.
Exactly. The article suggests that for a growing number of doctors, these AI tools are opening up a new front in the battle to approve costly claims. Dr. Tariq is quoted as saying, "We haven't had legislative tools or policymaking tools or anything to fight back. This is finally a tool I can use to fight back."
Wow, so it's like having a super fast, super smart assistant to help with all that paperwork?
That's a good way to look at it, Joanne. The article suggests that these AI tools are doing in minutes what years of advocacy and attempts at healthcare reform have not been able to accomplish.
It's really quite remarkable. The AI can synthesize research and make a case for why a treatment should be approved, potentially saving doctors hours of work and helping patients get the care they need more quickly.
But wait, aren't insurance companies using AI too? Isn't this just going to turn into some kind of AI arms race?
That's an insightful question, Joanne. The article does mention that health plans are increasingly relying on technology to deny treatment. So, in a way, doctors are fighting fire with fire.
Absolutely. It's a new frontier in the ongoing struggle between healthcare providers and insurers. Dr. Tariq is quoted as saying, "I think for people like me, ChatGPT and generative AI have been a lifeline."
It's a fascinating development, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the coming years. Will it lead to better outcomes for patients? Will insurers adapt their strategies? Only time will tell.
Well, as long as it helps people get the care they need, I'm all for it. Go, Dr. Bots.
I think many patients would agree with you, Joanne. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. We'll be discussing how AI is fueling what's being called a nuclear renaissance, with some big names like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos involved. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, listeners. We're diving into a fascinating topic today: how artificial intelligence is fueling what's being called a nuclear renaissance. And get this, big names like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos are involved. Jessica, can you give us an overview?
Absolutely, John. According to an article from Investors Business Daily, the AI boom that started with ChatGPT has led to a surge in demand for nuclear power. This is largely due to the massive energy needs of data centers running AI applications.
Wait, so AI is making nuclear power cool again? That's unexpected.
It is surprising, Joanne. The article mentions a nuclear power startup called Oklo, backed by OpenAI's Sam Altman. A year ago, they were discussing deals for megawatts of energy. Now, their clients want 1,000 times that much.
That's right, John. Jacob DeWitt, Oklo's CEO, said the rate and timing of this increase was faster than they expected. And it's not just Oklo. Major tech companies are getting involved too.
Let me guess, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google?
Spot on, Joanne. The article mentions that all three have made bets on nuclear power supply. Bill Gates has become a leading investor in the technology, and Jeff Bezos is backing a nuclear startup in Canada.
It's worth noting that this surge in interest is driven by the massive energy needs of data centers. The International Energy Agency says there are now more than 7,000 data centers in operation or development worldwide, up from 3,600 in 2015.
Wow, that's a lot of data centers, but how much power do they really need?
Well, according to McKinsey & Co., data center energy demand is projected to grow around 10% every year through the end of the decade. In 2022, data centers consumed about 4% of total U.S. electricity.
And it's expected to grow even more. Goldman Sachs projects that by 2030, U.S. data centers will use 8% of total power. That's a huge increase in demand over a relatively short period.
I get why they need more power, but why nuclear? Aren't there safer options?
Good question, Joanne. The article suggests that nuclear power is attractive because it's a clean, firm resource that can provide consistent, uninterrupted power. This is especially important for data centers.
Exactly. And there's particular interest in small modular reactors, or SMRs, which can be located on site at data centers. This could potentially lower power costs by reducing transmission and distribution charges.
But isn't nuclear power controversial? What about safety concerns?
You're right, Joanne. The article does mention that the industry still carries baggage from incidents like 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima. There are also long-term concerns about storing and disposing of radioactive spent fuel rods.
That's true, but it seems the AI boom is brushing some of that resistance aside. Craig Piercy, CEO of the American Nuclear Society, said the potential energy demand for AI and data centers has put a lot of wind in the nuclear industry's sails.
So, are we going to see nuclear power plants popping up everywhere now?
Not quite, Joanne. While there's a lot of interest, there are still challenges. For instance, uranium prices are forecast to climb significantly, and there are concerns about fuel supply, especially with restrictions on Russian uranium imports.
And it's worth noting that not everyone is convinced nuclear power will meet all the demand. Wood Mackenzie analyst Ben Hertz-Shargel suggests that nuclear might be too little, too late to manage the massive demand we'll face this decade.
On the other hand, Morgan Stanley analysts believe a nuclear renaissance is underway. They see $1.5 trillion in investment in new capacity through 2050.
Wow, that's a lot of money. So what's the bottom line here?
Well, Joanne, it seems clear that the AI boom is driving a significant increase in energy demand, and nuclear power is being seen as one potential solution. But it's also clear that there are still challenges and uncertainties ahead.
Absolutely, Jessica. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's certainly an interesting development to watch. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. We'll be discussing some new AI memory technologies with intriguing names like Recall, Limitless, and Gemini. Stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. We're diving into a fascinating topic today, AI memory machines. Companies like Microsoft, Google, and Apple are all working on ways to use AI to help us remember, well, everything. Jessica, can you give us an overview?
Absolutely, John. The article from The Verge starts by pointing out a simple fact. Humans are terrible at remembering things. We forget over time, we fail to pay attention, and we misremember due to our biases. But now it looks like AI might be able to fix that.
Wait, so we're talking about AI that can remember things for us? Like a superpowered notepad?
It's actually much more than that, Joanne. For instance, Microsoft is making a big bet on an app called Recall. It promises to use AI to collect, store, organize, and resurface everything you do and see on your computer.
Exactly. Imagine being able to ask your computer, what was that article about bees I read the other day? What was the timeline it mentioned? And getting an accurate answer immediately.
Wow, that would be amazing. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten where I read something.
And it's not just Microsoft. Google demonstrated an AI that could help you remember where you left your glasses. Apple is looking at using AI to make photo albums and even emotional videos to remember great moments.
The article also mentions that companies like Notion and Dropbox are building AI into their tools to help you find and remember all your meetings and tasks. The promise is consistent. Don't worry about remembering things because the computer will do it for you, faster and better.
This all sounds great, but is it really a good idea to outsource our memories to AI?
That's an excellent question, Joanne. The article actually delves into that by discussing an interview with Dan Soroker, the CEO of Limitless, a company that's been working on this problem for a long time.
Right, and Soroker talks about what it takes to build a great memory aid, how we might use them in the future, and why it's so tricky to get right. But he also touches on the human side of it all.
The human side? What do you mean?
Well, Joanne, the article raises some interesting questions. For example, what does it change about our lives when we stop forgetting things? Is remembering your friend's birthday different when it's actually an AI model doing the remembering?
Exactly. And there's also the question of whether these tools will ever really work outside of work contexts. It's one thing to remember business meetings and tasks, but what about personal memories?
I hadn't thought about that. I guess there's a big difference between remembering a work deadline and remembering the feeling of your first kiss.
That's a great point, Joanne. The article suggests that tools like Limitless are coming fast and improving quickly, but we're going to have to figure out how to live with them.
And that's really the crux of it. These AI memory machines promise to revolutionize how we remember and process information, but they also raise profound questions about the nature of memory and its role in our lives.
It's kind of scary when you think about it. What if the AI gets it wrong? Or what if someone hacks into your AI memory?
Those are valid concerns, Joanne. The article doesn't go into those specific issues, but they're certainly part of the broader conversation about AI and privacy that we've been having in recent years.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting that while these tools promise to enhance our memory capabilities, they're not replacing human memory entirely. They're more like very advanced assistants.
Well said, Jessica. It seems clear that AI memory machines are going to be a big part of our future, but how exactly we'll use them and what impact they'll have on our lives is still very much an open question.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe I'll finally remember where I put my keys.
Ha! Let's hope so, Joanne. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. We'll be discussing something quite different. A creepy-looking Lego head powered by AI. Stay tuned, folks. Welcome back, listeners. We're diving into a story that's both fascinating and, well, a little creepy. We're talking about Dave, the world's most advanced artificial intelligence Lego robotic head. Jessica, can you give us an overview?
Absolutely, John. According to this Fox News article, Creative Mindstorms has created a Lego creation that can not only move, but also see, hear, and talk back to you. It's a remarkable combination of Lego bricks and cutting-edge AI technology.
Wait, are we talking about a Lego head that can actually talk? Like, have a conversation?
That's right, Joanne. Dave is integrated with ChatGPT, which allows him to engage in natural, flowing conversations. He can even play games like rock, paper, scissors and respond in real time.
And here's something really impressive. Dave is bilingual. He can communicate fluently in both English and Dutch, making him the world's first bilingual Lego robotic head.
Wow, that's more languages than I speak. But how does this thing actually work?
Well, Joanne, it's quite complex. The creator spent weeks designing intricate mechanisms. For example, Dave's eyes can move up, down, and side to side, while his eyebrows and mouth corners are articulated to convey a range of emotions.
That's right, John. The article mentions that the eyes are probably the most complicated parts of the machine. They're connected to each other on a horizontal shaft with vertical axles on both ends, allowing for a wide range of movement.
That sounds incredibly complicated. How long did it take to build all this?
The article says it was created over several months. In fact, the mouth mechanism alone took 2 weeks to perfect and involves more gears than the entire head.
And it's not just about the hardware. Dave is brought to life by nearly 1,100 lines of code that enable him to track hands and faces, recognize faces and objects, read text, count, estimate emotions, age and gender, plus tell time and weather.
That's incredible. But is it just me, or does anyone else find this a little creepy?
You're not alone, Joanne. The article's headline actually refers to Dave as creepy looking. But it's worth noting that this is a significant step forward in the world of Lego robotics and AI integration.
Absolutely. While Dave is currently a unique creation and not available for public purchase, he demonstrates the incredible possibilities that arise when creativity, engineering, and artificial intelligence converge.
I guess so, but I have to ask, does Dave have hair? Because I'm imagining a bald Lego head, and it's not helping with the creepy factor.
Funny you should ask that, Joanne. The article mentions that creating Dave's hair was one of the biggest challenges. After struggling with Lego bricks, the creator chose a more practical solution, a wig.
That's right. This creative workaround required some adjustments to the head's shape, but ultimately proved successful.
A Lego head with a wig. Now I've heard everything.
It certainly is unique. The article ends by asking readers what innovative applications or features they'd like to see implemented in future AI-powered Lego creations. It's clear that this is just the beginning of what's possible in this field.
Absolutely, John. While Dave might be a bit too uncanny valley for some, he represents a fascinating intersection of play, technology, and artificial intelligence. It'll be interesting to see where this technology goes from here.
Indeed it will, Jessica. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. We'll be discussing how Adobe Acrobat is changing the game for meetings with a new feature. Stay tuned, folks. Welcome back, listeners. We're diving into a game-changing development in the world of document management. Adobe Acrobat has introduced a new feature that's set to revolutionize how we handle meetings and documents. Jessica, can you give us an overview?
Absolutely, John. According to this article from Softonic, Adobe Acrobat has integrated a new feature called AI Assistant. It's a conversational model powered by artificial intelligence that Adobe showcased to the world in 2024.
AI Assistant sounds fancy, but what does it actually do?
Well, Joanne, It's designed to increase our productivity in several ways. For instance, it can answer questions related to the content of a document with citations so you can verify the answers.
That's right, John. It can also summarize very extensive or complex files and link information so you can quickly locate what you need. And importantly, Adobe assures that nothing you open within Acrobat is used to train the AI, addressing privacy concerns.
That sounds pretty useful. But how would you use it in a real-world situation?
Great question, Joanne. The article gives a practical example. Imagine you missed an important meeting and want to know what was discussed. If you have a written transcript, you can open it with Adobe Acrobat and ask the AI assistant to generate a summary.
Exactly. You can ask questions like, what were the main discussion points? Or suggest a few questions I could ask the team. There's even a generative summary feature that will summarize your text directly.
That sounds amazing. Can anyone use this?
Well, there are some limitations. The article mentions that regardless of your Adobe Acrobat plan, you'll need to pay an additional subscription to use AI Assistant. There's a special early access price until September 4th, 2024.
That's right, John. And it's worth noting that for now, AI Assistant only supports text in English. Also, the features are still being rolled out gradually, so some users might not see them yet.
Oh, so it's not available for everyone yet. But what if you try it and don't like it? Can you turn it off?
Yes, you can, Joanne. The article provides step-by-step instructions on how to disable the AI features in both the desktop and online versions of Adobe Acrobat.
It's a simple process. In the desktop version, you just need to go to Preferences, then Generative AI, and uncheck the box to enable generative AI features. In the online version, you can find similar options in the settings.
That's good to know. But overall, this sounds like it could be a real time saver for a lot of people.
Absolutely, Joanne. While it's still in beta and has some limitations, AI Assistant represents a significant step forward in document management and meeting productivity.
Indeed, John. It's another example of how AI is being integrated into everyday tools to enhance our productivity. It'll be interesting to see how users respond and how Adobe continues to develop this feature.
Absolutely, Jessica. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. We'll be discussing Samsung's perspective on Galaxy AI and why they believe the user interface is the AI. Stay tuned, folks. Welcome back, listeners. We're diving into an exciting topic today, Samsung's Galaxy AI. We have some fascinating insights from Patrick Chomet, Samsung's Executive VP and Head of Customer Experience. Jessica, can you give us an overview?
Absolutely, John. According to this Tech Radar article, Chomet believes that the AI transformation we're seeing now is one of the biggest in his lifetime. He even says it's bigger than the shift from feature phones to smartphones.
Wow, that's a bold statement. What makes it so revolutionary?
Well, Joanne, Chomet explains that it's about making all services intelligent and deeply understanding customer context and intention. Samsung wants to deploy this at scale across all devices, creating an ecosystem-level transformation.
That's right, John. And it's not just about individual features. Chomet emphasizes that the UI is AI and AI is the UI. He sees this as a fundamental shift in how user interfaces work.
That sounds pretty exciting. But what about Bixby? Isn't that Samsung's AI assistant?
Good question, Joanne. Chomet addresses this in the interview. He says Bixby will continue to evolve and improve with LLM technology, but it remains fundamentally different from Galaxy AI.
Exactly. Chomet describes Galaxy AI as the fabric of the device, while Bixby is more of a service that runs on the device, along with other intelligent services.
I see. But how does this compare to what other companies are doing, like Apple?
Interestingly, Chomet had some strong words about that. Without naming Apple directly, he suggested that Samsung's AI offerings are real and already deployed on millions of devices, while implying that some competitors' announcements are more about future plans than current capabilities.
That's right, John. He also emphasized Samsung's partnership with Google, particularly in developing features like Circle to Search. Chomet described it as a very special partnership.
But wait, Doesn't all this AI stuff raise privacy concerns?
Absolutely, Joanne, and Samsung seems to be aware of this. Sonnet explained that their preference is to run AI features on device for better performance, personalization, and privacy. However, some features still require cloud processing.
That's correct. Chimette mentioned that users will have control over whether their data is shared with the cloud for these generative AI systems.
That's good to hear. So what's next for Samsung's AI journey?
Well, Chomet says this is just the beginning. Samsung is working to deliver Galaxy AI to its user base of 1 billion people, with quality being the main limiting factor.
Indeed, John. It seems clear that Samsung sees AI as a transformative force, not just for individual devices, but for the entire Galaxy ecosystem. It'll be fascinating to see how this vision unfolds in the coming years.
Absolutely, Jessica. And on that note, let's move on to our next topic. We'll be discussing some serious allegations against OpenAI regarding staff safety concerns. Stay tuned, folks. Welcome back, listeners. We're diving into a serious topic today. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, is facing some serious allegations from whistleblowers. Jessica, can you give us an overview?
Absolutely, John. According to a Washington Post article, OpenAI whistleblowers have filed a complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission. They allege that the company illegally prohibited its employees from warning regulators about potential risks of their AI technology.
Wow, that sounds serious. What exactly are they saying OpenAI did?
Well, Joanne, the whistleblowers claim that OpenAI issued overly restrictive employment, severance, and non-disclosure agreements. These agreements could have led to penalties against workers who raised concerns about OpenAI to federal regulators.
That's right, John. The complaint alleges that OpenAI made staff sign agreements that required them to waive their federal rights to whistleblower compensation. They also had to get prior consent from the company to disclose information to federal authorities.
That doesn't sound legal, is it?
According to the whistleblowers, it's not. They claim these agreements violated long-standing federal laws and regulations meant to protect whistleblowers who wish to reveal damning information about their company anonymously and without fear of retaliation.
One of the whistleblowers, speaking anonymously, said these contracts sent a message that we don't want employees talking to federal regulators. They argued that AI companies can't build safe technology if they shield themselves from scrutiny and dissent.
That's pretty scary. What does OpenAI have to say about all this?
OpenAI has responded, Joanne. Their spokesperson, Hannah Wong, stated that their whistleblower policy protects employees' rights to make protected disclosures. She also mentioned that they've made changes to their departure process to remove non-disparagement terms.
It's worth noting that this isn't just about OpenAI. The article points out that tech companies' strict confidentiality agreements have long been a problem for workers and regulators, especially in the context of issues like sexual misconduct or racial discrimination.
I can see why this would be a big deal, especially with AI advancing so quickly. What are policymakers saying about this?
Good question, Joanne. Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, has weighed in. He said that OpenAI's policies appear to have a chilling effect on whistleblowers' rights, and that their non-disclosure agreements must change for the federal government to stay ahead of artificial intelligence.
The whistleblowers are calling for swift action from the SEC. They want the agency to require OpenAI to produce all agreements containing non-disclosure clauses, notify all past and current employees of their rights, and potentially face fines for each improper agreement.
This sounds like it could have big implications beyond just OpenAI. Is that right?
Absolutely, Joanne. The article suggests that this issue could be relevant to the wider AI sector. It might even violate the October White House executive order that demands AI companies develop the technology safely.
That's right, John, and it's not just about AI. The article mentions that this is part of a broader struggle against Silicon Valley's use of NDAs to monopolize information. A lawyer who won a settlement against Google for similar issues says tech companies are increasingly finding clever ways to deter speech.
This is clearly a complex and evolving situation with potentially far-reaching consequences. We'll be keeping a close eye on how it develops. And on that note, let's move on to our final topic of the day. We'll be discussing a concerning discovery about Google's Gemini AI and its interaction with Google Drive files. Stay tuned, folks. Welcome back, listeners. We're wrapping up today's episode with a concerning story about Google's Gemini AI. Jessica, can you give us an overview?
Absolutely, John. According to a report from Tom's Hardware, Google's Gemini AI service has been caught reading private Google Drive documents without express user permission. This was first reported by Kevin Bankston on Twitter.
Wait, what? Google's AI is just reading our private documents? That's terrifying.
It is concerning, Joanne. Bankston reported that when he opened his tax return in Google Docs, Gemini automatically summarized it without him asking for that service.
That's right, John. And what's more troubling is that when Bankston tried to find settings to turn this feature off, he couldn't locate them. Neither Google support nor the Gemini AI itself seemed to know exactly what was going on.
That's crazy. How can Google not know how their own AI works?
Well, Joanne, it gets even more confusing. Bankston eventually found the settings toggle to disable Gemini summaries in Gmail, Drive, and Docs, only to discover that it was already disabled.
Exactly. And the toggle was in a completely different place than where the Gemini bot had initially directed him. It seems the issue might be localized to Google Drive and only happens after pressing the Gemini button on at least one document.
So, is this happening to everyone using Google Drive?
Not necessarily, Joanne. Bankston theorizes that it might be related to him enabling Google Workspace Labs back in 2023, which could be overriding the intended Gemini AI settings.
That's right, John. But even if this issue is isolated to Google Workspace Labs users, it's still a serious privacy concern. The article points out that user consent still matters on a granular basis, especially when it comes to potentially sensitive information.
I can't believe Google would let something like this happen. Aren't they supposed to be leaders in tech?
You're right to be concerned, Joanne. The article suggests that this doesn't bode well for future privacy concerns amidst AI's often forced rollout. It's a stark reminder of the challenges we face as AI becomes more integrated into our daily lives.
Absolutely, John. This incident highlights the need for greater transparency and user control when it comes to AI features, especially those that interact with our personal data.
Well said, Jessica. And on that note, we've come to the end of today's episode. We've covered a lot of ground today, from Samsung's Galaxy AI to OpenAI's whistleblower issues, and now this concerning development with Google's Gemini AI. It's clear that as AI continues to advance, we'll need to stay vigilant about its impact on our privacy and security.
Absolutely, John. These stories highlight both the incredible potential of AI and the serious challenges it presents. It's more important than ever for users to stay informed and for companies to prioritize transparency and user control.
Wow, my head is spinning with all this information, but I'm glad we're talking about it.
We're glad you found it informative, Joanne. And we want to thank all our listeners for tuning in to this episode of our AI Tech News podcast. We hope you found our discussions enlightening and thought-provoking. Remember to stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of AI.